It started with the emergency alert that I'd been in Wichita for 3 months, a temporary relocation for a project my firm had landed with a local aerospace company. My apartment was a bland, beige box in a complex off East Harry Street, the kind of place that smelled like carpet cleaner and other people's dinners. That night, a Tuesday, Maya was over. Maya was a graphic designer I'd met at a brewery in Old Town. She had this effortless cool about her that made my corporate world feel stiff and artificial. That night she was curled up on the far end of my sofa, legs tucked under her, wearing a thin cream-colored sweater and jeans that hugged the gentle curve of her hips. That we were watching some forgettable movie, the blue light of the screen flickering over her face. I wasn't really paying attention to the plot. That I was watching the way her lips, glossed with something that caught the light, parted slightly when she breathed, the way a loose strand of her dark hair lay against her neck. That I was thinking about how her skin had tasted earlier, a mix of salt and her jasmine perfume, when the world erupted into a sound I'd heard 100 times before and never once truly listened to. It was the emergency alert system. That jarring digital screech, the one that prefaces tornado warnings and amber alerts. That we both jumped. Jesus, Maya muttered, fumbling for her phone on the coffee table as my own phone vibrated with a violent buzz against the wood. On the television screen, the movie was replaced by the familiar, stark block letters. Emergency alert. A monotonous, robotic tone blared, and then a flat, synthesized voice began to speak. Asterisk, this is a test of the Kansas emergency alert system. This is only a test. No action is required. Star. I relaxed, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Just a test. Maya nodded, putting her phone down. But the voice didn't stop. Asterisk, the following is a test message. Asterisk, it droned. Asterisk, at 9:14 p.m., a male subject is seated on a beige sectional sofa. That he is wearing a gray Henley shirt and dark blue jeans. His socks are black. To his right, on a laminated pine coffee table, rests a half-empty bottle of Boulevard Pale Ale, condensation beating on the glass. There is a remote control, a Samsung phone with a cracked screen, and a copy of Project Management for Dummies. Star. My blood went cold. That it was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. That I sat frozen, my hand clenched around my own beer bottle. That Maya's head slowly turned towards me. Her eyes, usually warm and laughing, were wide. What the hell was that? I don't know, I managed to stammer. A weird test. The female subject, the voice continued, utterly devoid of inflection. Asterisk, is seated approximately 4 feet from the male subject. She is wearing a cream-colored cashmere blend sweater, size small, and bootcut denim jeans. Her feet are bare. The second toe on her left foot is slightly longer than the big toe. A silver ring with a small turquoise stone is on the middle finger of her right hand. She has a small, crescent-shaped scar 2 centimeters in length on her left kneecap. Star. Maya gasped, a sharp, involuntary intake of breath. Her hand flew to her knee, fingers pressing against the fabric of her jeans, right over the scar she'd gotten from a bicycle accident when she was 9. A scar I'd only noticed for the first time a week ago, in the intimate dimness of my bedroom. How? She whispered, her voice trembling. How could it know that? The robotic voice concluded, asterisk, this has been a test of the Kansas emergency alert system. Had this been an actual emergency, the tone you just heard would have been followed by official information. This concludes this test. Asterisk, the screen flickered, and the movie snapped back into place. A car was exploding. Nobody paid any attention. The silence in the room was heavier than any sound. It was a thick, suffocating blanket. I could hear the hum of my refrigerator from the kitchen, the frantic thumping of my own heart. That wasn't normal, Maya said, her voice small. She untucked her legs and I found myself staring stupidly at her bare feet. The voice was right. The second toe on her left foot was longer. I'd never even registered it before. Now, it seemed like the most obscene, intimate detail in the world. It has to be a prank, I said, forcing a confidence I didn't feel. Some hacker, they do that sometimes, right? Hijack the emergency system. To describe the scar on my knee? Her voice rose an octave. To mention your stupid book? Who would do that? And how? I had no answer. I picked up my phone. The screen showed the same alert message word for word. I opened a web browser. My social media feeds were already starting to buzz with confusion. Weird is test just now, one post read. Another, did anyone else's alert get super specific? Creepy. But none of them were specific like mine. They were generic. A man in a red truck at the Quick Trip on North Woodlawn. A woman walking a golden retriever on the Arkansas River path. Vague enough to be a coincidence or a glitch. Ours was a photograph, narrated in a dead voice. We should go, Maya said suddenly, standing up. She grabbed her sandals but didn't put them on, just held them in one hand. Her movements were jerky, nervous. The way her sweater stretched across her back as she moved, the shape of her shoulders, it usually sent a pleasant heat through me. Now it just felt like we were being watched, catalogued. Go where? I asked, standing as well. I don't know. Just out that I can't sit here. That it feels violated. I knew what she meant. The apartment, my safe, boring beige box, felt different. The walls felt thin. The windows felt like eyes. That I grabbed my keys. That we ended up at a 24-hour diner called the Oasis, a place with sticky vinyl booths and the smell of old coffee and grease. It was mostly empty, just a few late-night truckers and a group of college kids looking worse for wear. That we slid into a booth by the window, the neon sign outside casting a red glow on Maya's face. She finally put her sandals on, and I watched the delicate bones of her ankles, the way the thin strap bit gently into her skin. It was a familiar, lustful observation, but tonight it was tangled with a sharp, metallic thread of fear. The alert had taken that 2.my private glances, my quiet desires, and had broadcast them back to me in a sterile public warning that we ordered coffee we didn't drink. What does it mean? Maya asked, stirring a packet of sugar into the black liquid, her spoon clinking a frantic rhythm against the ceramic mug. I don't know. That a glitch. Some kind of targeted harassment. Even as I said it, it sounded absurd. It described the room marked. It described us. Our clothes, our bodies. She wouldn't look at me. She kept staring out the window at the empty parking lot. That we sat in silence for a long time. The fear was a living thing in the booth with us, sitting between us, keeping us from touching. I wanted to reach across the table, to take her hand, to feel the solid reality of her. But I couldn't. The memory of that synthesized voice was a wall. It was when we were leaving, walking across the cracked asphalt toward my car, that I first saw him. A man, standing under a flickering sodium vapor light at the far edge of the lot. He was just standing there, facing us. He was tall and thin, wearing a dark, long coat that seemed too heavy for the mild Kansas night. He was too far away to see his face, but I got the impression of pale, sharp features. What is it? Maya asked, following my gaze. That guy. Don't look, I said too quickly. She looked anyway. So? It's a parking lot. He's just standing there. Maybe he's waiting for someone. She sounded impatient, but I saw her pull her sweater tighter around herself. I unlocked the car and we got in. As I backed out, I kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. He just stood under that stuttering light, a still, dark silhouette. I told myself I was being paranoid. The alert had spooked me, that was all. I drove Maya back to her apartment near Wichita State. The silence in the car was different now, charged with a new shared unease. When I pulled up to her building, she didn't immediately get out. Are you going to be okay? She asked, finally looking at me. Yet out of course it was just a weird thing. She nodded, but didn't seem convinced. She leaned over and gave me a quick, dry kiss on the cheek. It was a friend's kiss. The kind of kiss that put distance between us. Call me tomorrow. I watched her walk to her door, the sway of her hips in those tight jeans, the way her hair swung with each step. A part of me, the part that was always watching her, noted it, filed it away. The other part, the new, frightened part, was scanning the shadows of her porch, the dark windows of the neighboring apartments. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every set of headlights in my rearview mirror felt like a threat. Every pedestrian on the sidewalk was a potential watcher. When I got back to my apartment, I locked the door and engaged the deadbolt, something I rarely bothered with. I stood in the middle of the living room. The beige sectional. The laminated pine coffee table. My half-empty beer bottle was still there, the condensation now just a wet ring. It was all exactly as the voice had described. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day was a blur. I went to work at the office we'd leased downtown, but I couldn't focus. I found myself staring out the window at the people moving on the street below. Were they being watched too? I checked the news sites, the local subreddit. The strange yes test was a minor story, a curiosity. The official statement from the Kansas Division of Emergency Management was a masterpiece of bureaucratic nothingness. A technical anomaly during a scheduled system test is under investigation. No personal data was compromised. I wanted to scream. No personal data? They had described the scar on Maya's knee. I called her around lunchtime. Hey, she said, her voice sounded tired. Did you see the statement from the state? Yeah. Technical anomaly. Bullshit. I know. I paused, chewing on my thumbnail. Did you notice anything else weird last night? After we left the diner? What do you mean? That guy in the parking lot, did he seem off to you? She was quiet for a moment. I don't know, Mark. I was pretty freaked out that he was just a guy standing in a parking lot. But he wasn't. I was sure of it. That evening, I decided to go for a run along the Arkansas River path, hoping the physical exertion would clear my head. The path was a ribbon of concrete that wound through the city, popular with cyclists and joggers. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It should have been peaceful. About a mile in, I saw him again. The man in the dark coat. He was standing on a pedestrian bridge up ahead, leaning against the railing, looking down into the river. He was too far away to be certain, but the build was the same, tall, gaunt. The coat was the same. My pace faltered. My breath, already labored from the run, hitched in my chest. It couldn't be the same guy. Wichita wasn't a small town. It was a city of nearly 400,000 people. Coincidence? I kept running, my eyes fixed on him. As I got closer, I could see more details. His hair was black, slicked back from a high forehead. His skin was unnaturally pale, almost waxy. He wasn't looking at the river anymore. He was looking at me. His eyes were the most unsettling part. They were a very light, watery blue, and they held no expression at all. They were like the eyes of a dead fish. I was about to pass under the bridge. I lowered my gaze, focusing on the path in front of me, the rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement. I didn't want to look at him. I could feel his gaze on me, a cold pressure on the back of my neck. Just as I was about to pass directly beneath him, I heard a voice. It was soft, but perfectly clear, cutting through the sound of the river and my own pounding heart. The laces on your left shoe are coming untied. My head snapped up. He was gone. I skidded to a stop, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked down at my feet. The laces on my left shoe were coming untied. A cold dread, deeper and more profound than anything I'd felt during the alert, washed over me. The alert was a broadcast, a shotgun blast of weirdness. This was a laser. This was for me. I turned in a frantic circle, scanning the bridge, the path behind me, the groves of trees along the riverbank. He was nowhere. He had vanished as if he'd never been there. But his voice still echoed in my ears. It hadn't been robotic, like the alert. It had been a normal male voice. Quiet, calm, and it had known with impossible certainty a tiny mundane detail about my immediate reality. I didn't finish my run. I walked back to my car, my body trembling with a cocktail of adrenaline and fear. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see the dark coat, the pale face, those empty eyes. When I got home, I poured a whiskey, my hands shaking so badly I sloshed some onto the counter. I tried to rationalize it. He'd seen my shoelace. It was a guess. A lucky guess. He was just a weirdo who liked to mess with people. But the timing, the location, the specific detail, it felt connected. The alert and the man were two pieces of the same terrifying puzzle. I didn't call Maya. I was too ashamed. Ashamed of my fear, and ashamed of the dark, possessive thoughts that were now surfacing. The alert had exposed my gaze, and now this man was mirroring it back at me, but with a predatory, knowing quality that made my skin crawl. I thought of Maya's bare feet in my apartment, the delicate arch, the painted nails. The alert had mentioned her feet. Had this man seen them too? The idea was nauseating. The next few days were a slow descent into a quiet hell. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, documenting every detail like a crime scene investigator. The number of tiles on my bathroom floor, 48. The brand of the light bulb in my hallway lamp, Fight Electric, 60W soft white. The exact pattern of the water stain on my ceiling that I was waiting for one of these details to be used against me. I saw the man twice more. Once he was standing on the sidewalk across the street from my office, just watching the building that I was on the 12th floor, and I saw him look up, his pale face a tiny moon against the dark pavement that I ducked away from the window, my heart pounding. The second time I was at the Dillon's grocery store on Rock Road. I was in the cereal aisle, trying to decide between Cheerios and Raisin Bran, when I felt that cold pressure again that I turned, and he was at the end of the aisle, pushing a cart. His cart was empty, that he wasn't looking at the shelves, that he was looking at me, that he didn't smile, didn't frown, that he just looked. Then he turned and pushed his empty cart around the corner, that I left my own half-full cart in the aisle and walked straight out of the store. I was falling apart, that I stopped going for runs, that I started working from home, telling my project manager I had a stomach bug, that I ordered groceries for delivery, that my world was shrinking to the dimensions of my beige apartment, and even that didn't feel safe anymore. Maya knew something was wrong. She came over on Friday night, a week after the alert. She brought a pizza and a six-pack of beer, a peace offering. "You look like shit," she said bluntly, standing in my doorway. She was wearing a simple black dress, and the sight of her, so vibrant and real, was almost painful. "Thanks," I said, stepping aside to let her in. We ate pizza on the floor because the sofa felt tainted now that I told her everything, about the man at the diner, on the bridge, outside my office, in the grocery store. I told her about the shoelace, that I didn't try to sound brave or rational, that I let the fear pour out of me. She listened, her expression growing more and more concerned. When I finished, she was silent for a long time, picking at the label on her beer bottle. "Mark," she said softly, this sounds like you're being stalked." "It's more than that," I insisted. "It's connected to the alert, that IT has to be. He knows things, tiny things." "Okay, let's say it is connected. What do we do? Go to the police? And say what? A creepy guy is following me and he knew my shoelace was untied? They'll think you're crazy." She was right, that I knew she was right. The frustration was a physical ache in my chest. Maybe.